Oh my goodness, so much going on here in Rhode Island after the, the State House turmoil. And now we may have an opening to do something corrective, good for the quality of life.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
How are you? Welcome into the Thursday edition of Dan Yorke State of Mind. Ken Block is here and he's revved up, and he should be, because he's on a topic that, frankly, I took a few-year break on. And I'm, kind of knocking myself for doing it. It's the legislative grant program, which is now coming to the bubbling surface with the Ray Gallison controversy at the State House. Ray Gallison's involved in the varsity end. I've been involved in the JV end. The JV end is actually more crucial than the varsity end, and we'll kind of talk about both ends in just a couple of minutes. Okay, let's go to the rundown, see what's going on my state of mind and maybe your state of mind. So Hillary's hitting back a little bit. And this is going to be something. She's got headlines like this going on right now. She's got rivals. She's got Bernie still that she's dangling with, and now Donald, because he's free of any kind of primary contention now. He's all good to get after her. He suggests that you might want to go the high road, which cracks me up.
If she wants to go the low road, I'm fine with that. And if she wants to go the high road, which probably I would prefer, I would be fine with that.
Yeah, there's other audio yesterday that we don't have for you here, but he's talking about Hillary's husband. You may remember him, Bill, doing the whole rumor mill from back in the old days type of thing. I'm sure the Monica thing will come up before not too long. And of course, she says, well, he's very 90s. And if he wants to go to the 90s, I've protected myself from the 90s, and I'll protect myself again, whatever. Meanwhile, I think she's got her theme for this campaign.
I don't think we can take a risk on a loose cannon like Donald Trump running our country.
So, excuse me, you caught me as a shortcut. I'm just getting adjusted. We're loose here. Loose cannon, get it? See, the words on my mind. The point here is that I think we're going to have corrupt Hillary versus the loose cannon. I think that's kind of the way the whole thing is going to go. It is going to be brutal, absolutely brutal. In the meantime, Tom Nichols, the professor from the Naval War College, who is a pretty well-known conservative scribe, was on the radio show yesterday, lamenting still, as one of those who's a never Trump guy, that he still doesn't have the numbers to pull the whole thing off.
The Trump nomination is kind of a freak perfect storm. I mean, he ran when 17 other people divided the vote. Your last caller just said, oh, he's what the people want. No, he's about what 38 to 40% of the people who voted want. But
here's the thing. You've got a busted up Republican Party in a big way. You got George Will writing things like, hey, let's just sit it out for 4 years and regroup as conservatives after Hillary can't get it done in her first term. It's just, it's going to be a mess. And although Cleveland is not going to be the mess that we thought it would with a contested convention, it's still going to be a mess as they try to galvanize around a guy that a lot of them just go, P.U., can't do it. Alrighty, speaking of doing it, can we do it? I don't know if we can do it. Can we save Superman? Man, I have got to have some people in here and on the radio, weekdays 3 to 6 now on WPRO, and examine this further. Here's the headline from today's stuff. Well, this is an editorial that Dominic Ruggiero, the state senator, posted, I think, yesterday in the Providence Journal. And here's the news on today's development, where the owner and some big hitters in the state are trying to get together, put a financial package to save the building.
Local leaders gathered in downtown Providence this morning to save one of the tallest buildings in the city, known by many as the Superman building.
And as soon as you see over the horizon and you see the cityscape with the Superman building, you all say to yourselves, and we all have that feeling inside, where we know that we're home.
Now, according to Providence Business News and a revaluation from a commercial contractor, this building has lost nearly half its value since it became vacant in 2013. But at the press conference, #SaveSupermanRI, speakers pushed what they consider to be the true value of this building, something money can't buy.
The cost of refurbishing is only going to get more expensive, which brings up the metaphorical question. What do we want to see of this building? Taking a wrecking ball to this beautiful, iconic structure would be the metaphorical equivalent of kryptonite to the city and the state's business attraction, community revitalization effort.
And using this historic structure as an example of the potential here in Rhode Island.
We'll not only revitalize this building, bring it back to life, but revitalize our city and state economy and make sure that Providence in our state becomes the jewel that we all know it can and it should be.
Well, you know, I'm missing something here. What's the number? The mayor is more or less saying this thing is a done deal. Now, we got to learn more about what the actual financial quotient is here. Look, this is a classic situation where it's too big to fail and too big to fix, or too damaged to fix. I get reports about the $100 million or more that's going to take just to make sure the asbestos et al. And the ceilings are elevated and all the things that have to be done in this wonderful building. We may have had the clock run out on this, but we'll see. I'm open-minded. Many of you aren't. It is a psychological thing. It is the cityscape. I get it, but what's the number, man? All right. Grant review. Are we having one? I don't know. The Speaker of the House is starting to look like he may want to. We've got all sorts of fallout from the Ray Gallison, former House Finance Chairman's exit this week. Roll them, Kev. We got headlines out the, well, steep hill for the new finance chair, and now here it is on the top. Grants misused, and that's right in my wheelhouse and my guest's wheelhouse. Authorities search ex-rep Gallison's home, not his state office, so we don't really know exactly what's going on with that investigation. What else do we got here? His agency is kind of shrouded in mystery, but it gets a lot of money in grants from the state. And, of course, we'll talk about that at another juncture. Here's the latest on the Gallison saga.
While serving as chairman of the House Finance Committee, documents dug up by the Target 12 investigators show former Representative Ray Gallison is listed as a paid assistant director for alternative education programming. It's a nonprofit group that helps underprivileged kids get into college. The tax forms Target 12 found shows the organization is funded mainly by legislative grants and received about $1.7 million in taxpayer dollars since 2005. Target 12 investigator Tim White went to the Providence office twice, but no one was there. So Eyewitness News went on the organization's website. It lists board members, and we reached out to them. Aubrey Lombardo is listed as its president and tells us, "I'm shocked I'm even affiliated with this." Another says, "I haven't worked there since God knows when." Victor Capian, the current superintendent of Central Falls, says he volunteered for the organization from 2010 to 2013. The work was not of a board, but rather of a committee that came together to organize events and support the college readiness program. The website currently lists the board's executive director as Leo DeMayo. He passed away in 2014. But we found if you want to donate, you're instructed to contact DeMayo with Gallison's personal email listed. Federal tax documents show Gallison handles the books for AEP, but it's unclear if the organization is part of the state and federal investigations surrounding Gallison. Capion says, "It's sad to know the work Mr. DeMayo had done for 40 years helping inner city kids. To have this swirling around it is just sad."
So sad.
It's a horror. It's a horror show.
Sometimes it makes me feel so sad.
I'm not going to sing.
Ken Block, ladies and gentlemen, former gubernatorial candidate, Watchdog RI, been front and center. Op-ed piece coming up on. Well, you got a grant. You got a grant op-ed piece coming up soon this weekend, correct?
This weekend, I believe.
In the Journal. Well, we'll preview all of that. Meaning, we'll talk about what you're going to write about. Welcome to the broadcast. This has been a confounded mess, and what we're now at least finding through the good bad break of losing the chairman, we're having conversations about grants. Give me the executive summary on what you're trying to do.
I believe the grant programs are utterly corrupt. They are a horrible way to fund some programs that have a lot of merit and are good programs. We do things for funding these types of programs very differently than most other states do, and they have to go. These grant programs have to disappear, and I think that the best way to get them gone is a legal challenge, and the only person in the state who can make that legal challenge is the governor. And what I've been doing is I've been asking in public, and what I'm going to be doing in Sunday's opinion piece, if it comes out on Sunday, is a direct appeal to the governor to challenge the constitutionality of these programs and strike them down and take this whole stain away, because I don't believe it's something that the legislature will necessarily do on their own.
All right, good thought. There's two kinds of grant programs that we're going to talk about. what they are in a second. But first, let me just give you this quick program note. There's an auction coming up this weekend at 12 p.m. on May 7th, which is Saturday. Thank you, Kevin. Do you mind if I steal a note here? Antiques and Fine Art Auction on Saturday. A great selection from all over Rhode Island and Southern New England. Wine and cheese party preview Friday night from 5 to 9, which is always fun. You know, never know what cool people you meet in that kind of a scene. Looking for estates and collections for upcoming auctions, meaning this is an ongoing project and they're generating new interest on both sides of the auction aisle. Give them a ring at that number, 401-533-9980, or just check it out, Brundo and Company on their website, which you see right there, .com. Right back on the Grant Conversation with Ken Block. Stay with us.
If Ray Gallison has made such a mistake, he should and will pay his price to society. You don't get any free passes by being in this room. Getting elected to the House of Representatives gives you the privilege of serving your community as hard and honorably as you can.
Yeah, the vitriol is, you want to talk about a guy who's awkward? He's awkward. The Speaker of the House is awkward. He's making a speech about something nobody knows what he did. He resigned and nobody knows what he did. There's some journalistic reports that there's a prostitution thing and there's a financial thing and there's a federal thing, and we don't know what he did. So this, this incredible speech, this is the same guy, by the way, that that thanked the former speaker who went to federal prison.
Yeah. It's a club. It's a club.
But that was a show. Gallison's disposable. Gallison should never have been the finance chairman.
With the ethics problems that he was, that he had to pay fines over, the violations, with his inability, this is the one that kills me, with his inability to properly account for his campaign finance records, we put him in charge of the state budget, right? So he misclassified $18,000 of donations to his campaign account. That was what the campaign violation was. But now he's in charge of a $9 billion budget. That terrifies me.
Well, there's no real deficit to the state of Rhode Island losing him as the chairman of House Finance, other than timing and notes and continuity. Kev, can we run our little piece on Mr. Abney? He's the replacement, Representative Abney, as the chair of Finance.
First of all, the structure of the House, the committee has not changed. I think one or two other members may have been reappointed. So the structure itself hasn't changed that much. And my job now, because it's at the very end of the process, is to make sure that we complete the budget on time with all of the things that we need to put in it. So I'm not going to change any of the structural things. We're going to have committees, the whole works, testimony. So that's going to remain the same.
His presentation is highly professional. I have heard mixed reports as to his skill set for this job. He's a bureaucrat. He's worked in state government before, and he's retired major from the U.S. Army, which always gives him props and thanks for service. Any guess as to how this finance committee's process? You've been up there so often as a watchdog. What's your take on what's going to happen here up through the end of June?
My sense has always been that the public hearings that the committee has have always been more theater than any real practical interaction between the committee and the public. So I don't know that the hearings are going to have that big an impact. I think a lot of what happens in that budget really happens behind the scenes. Right. Representative Abney does have in his MBA, so he might have the skills and the toolkit to really deal with this. I hope he does. And what's most important to me, and I think what Rhode Island should be hoping for more than anything else out of all of this, is that this is the impetus for reform, right? Let's get rid of the grants. Let's get better government accountability and transparency by bringing the line item veto in, right? There are some things that we need to do to operate like other states do, and that's not happening right now, and that's the biggest thing that we could get out of this, is those reforms, bring us in line with other states, and let's make sure the process sets us up for better success.
And here's the theme. Let me just repeat the theme. Ken's talking about doing what other states do. It's not like we're asking for reform that no one else in America has done. We're just looking to get to some standards that are, I don't know, state acceptable behavior standards. Let's go to let's take the grants and the line item veto in two separate places. in this program. Kev, can I have that headline on legislative grants? Because Nick Mattiello is actually burping out that he may review because of the Gallison departure, because Gallison was involved in taking grants for a long, long period of time, and we still don't know how that money was used. Mattiello is looking at the varsity end of the grant program, suggesting that he's ready to review it. And Frank, and I think I understand his perspective, which is, you know, the smaller the organization, the less diligence it can provide, the more dangerous it is for taxpayer money to go to it. Let's talk about the varsity grant program.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about what I call the junior varsity, which is the worst part, the rub and tug, as I'm
Dan, size doesn't matter. Okay? Because what the speaker seems to be saying is, well, what the speaker seems to be saying is that it's the small varsity programs that are the trouble. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we gave $500,000 to the Institute for International Sport, to that, and the director of that program is under indictment for embezzlement. Right. So it's not just the small ones. I argue the big ones are just as problematic potentially.
Wait a second now. There's a division here. This is where people get confused. There's the legislative grant program out of the JCLS, which is a cap of about $3 million annually, doled out in 500.
Right. That's the JV.
That's the JV program. That's my big decade-long argument. The program that you're talking about, which comes from the same discretion of the speaker, dole it out because he wants to, or the Senate president, dole it out because she wants to, mostly the speaker on this level, are the $15, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70, $80, $90, $100, $500,000 grants that are indiscriminately issued. And that's what Ray Gallison was dealing with.
And they're called community grants.
Correct.
Right, and that's the one I was talking about, and that's what I believe the speaker was referring to when he talked about
he's only
the small
focusing
ones.
on the big,
the small big ones.
The small of the big ones.
That's right.
Meaning $70,000 to an organization that you really haven't done any diligence on. Maybe we ought to pull that back.
Right. But I'd argue they didn't even do their diligence on the $500,000 grants.
Right.
So, and what I like to come back to is I like to use the example of the food bank, which is a worthy charity. Everyone watching will agree that the Rhode Island Food Bank is a worthy charity, and I've given to it in the past, and I would encourage everyone to do so. We fund our food bank with state tax dollars via the community grant program. Massachusetts, and it's a scrawny $200,000. Massachusetts pumps $17 million into their food bank system via a line item in the budget.
Which is duly debated on the floor.
Exactly. That's the proper way to do it. From a process perspective, that's how we should be funding anything like this. It should be coming through the budget. It shouldn't be in these standalone programs that have problematic oversight. It should have public debate. It should be vetted. It should go in the budget, and the governor should sign it. That's how you do it.
Well, he's flagging that he might agree with you.
I hope he does, because he's doing it wrong right now.
But he's arguing on the small ones, which I promise you are the thing that's keeping the whole state back. And we'll talk about why when we come back.
But I have every confidence that he will get it done, and collectively we will produce a budget that ultimately serves our communities in total and helps us to improve jobs and the economy.
That's referring to the new House Finance Chairman, Mr. Abney, who you saw in the last segment. I'd love to see Mr. Abney weigh in and say, you know what? I think this grant program is for the birds, and it's part of the problem here. Let's talk about the small grant program. It's so funny because Ken is right. There are, in the big grant program, which are called the
community grants.
There's the small community grants, which are, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. Then when you go to the legislative grant program, which is the small grant program, there are larger ones that get up to $20,000, $25,000, including one that the Speaker of the House doled out to his own city amidst $126,000 of complete package of legislative grants that he gave to his city because he just thought he should, or he could, or he can, because he's the boss.
And that's exactly what's wrong with them, right? The Speaker gave a gift of $25,000 to the Cranston Sports League. Now, the majority of the state doesn't live in Cranston. how unfair is it that because he's the speaker, Cranston kids get a $25,000 freebie, and every other kid and every other
25 grand to the Cranston Sports
to
League?
the Cranston League for Cranston's future. $25,000. That's a.
You
That's
sure about that one?
I'm absolutely sure about that. That's
I didn't realize you gave you that kind of.
$25,000 to the Cranston Sports
For
League.
what purpose? In your field or something?
I don't know what they use it for, but it's right there. It's right there in black and white.
All right, well,
and no one else gets that.
He also
and that's
gave
the
money to
basic
City
unfairness.
Hall, and Ellen Fung should have said no, thank you.
By the way, it's not just you're talking about the $15,000 to the police force.
Right.
In the community grant program, the city of Cranston got $100,000 for planning that no other community got.
All right. So in the category of grants, we got big problems.
There's more than $250,000 that went to Cranston.
But the $500 ones and the $1,000 ones, and I've got the list, and we'll run it on the radio show on a pretty regular basis. And so I've been talking about this since the day I got here, how confounded and corrupt this is. Because if you're the weak little Rep Ken Block, and you need 6 or 7 grants, 500 here, 1,000 there, so you can take your little cheesy smile picture in the Valley Breeze with your big check. Look at that, and the knucklehead citizens sit there and go, "Wow, you must be connected. Thanks for bringing home the bacon."
Right.
Keep you instead for re-election, and what you have to do to get those to conform to what the speaker wants to get done is disgusting.
Yeah.
Free thinking and real representation is missing with that program.
An act of political courage would be telling the speaker, "Thank you, but no, I'm not going to accept the grants." A bigger act of political courage would be a group of reps putting in legislation to abolish the grants. Right? These are all things that should be done, and the biggest act of political courage of all would be the governor challenge the legislative grants in court because they are, in fact, unconstitutional. They violate separation of powers, and let's just put an end to them.
It'd be nice for the governor to come back from 36,000 feet and actually swoop in and decide that she cares about the quality of life and step in now, because with her popularity rating as low as it is, maybe this is the time. The only rub in this is the tug, and that is that too many people are feeding at the trough for these grants, and people are going to have to be cleansed from this. You know, they're going to have to sell more brownies. They're going to have to do more car washes.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do those things to cleanse us of this grip of corruption that exists in the State House.
And the simple way to combat that is for every little league who gets one of these grants, there are a bunch of others who don't. And the basic unfairness of the grants, other than that they're being done in an unconstitutional way, the legislative grants, is the fact that if you're going to fund one little league, you should do them all, right? And that's the only fair way to be about it.
And that's not what we should.
And it's not the business of government
to do. And we should be
do.
debating that on the floor. Let alone, you make a point that he's acting like an executive inside the legislative branch of government.
100% yes.
And that's what you want the governor to ask the state Supreme Court about.
When the legislature solicits applications for these grant monies, determines who's going to get the grant monies, and then executes the transmission of those dollars out, they are violating separation of powers, because their only real role when it comes to government is passing a bill to fund a program, and it's the executive branch who's supposed to execute the program.
Well, keep on it. We'll read on Sunday, and of course, line item veto we didn't get to, but the governor should get on that too. Just ask
100%.
for it.
We need leadership. We are in the desert, starved for it. We need the leadership, and it's not coming.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Final word when we come back. Folks, you're going to have to be weaned off this legislative grant program. Now is the time, and this controversy with Mr. Gallison creates the conversation about grants, not only the large ones, but the small ones. It's going to be important for the quality of life in this state, because your legislators beg too much and give you too little for so little. Tomorrow night, Stephen Alexander on transgender rights, because you know what? They've been back in the news in Charlotte and other places. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.